Hello, fellow network members. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Patrick Prunty, and I'll be your host covering the topic of how to conduct due diligence. Now, what is due diligence? Well, it's an investigation of a potential investment. Others might call it due diligence serves as the process to confirm all material facts in regard to a potential sale. Now, that said, due diligence means and is something totally different to each and every one of us. Some of us really want to understand every minute detail about a particular market, a particular property manager, while others of us act more on emotion or perhaps based on a relationship or an interaction with a particular broker or a property manager, or perhaps it was just a trip that you had to a certain area. Now, I encourage those of us who desire the details not to get too caught up in all of the minutia. Analysis paralysis can happen very easily, especially to the point where you never end up investing, and we certainly don't want you to get to that point. On the other hand, I encourage those of you who act on a more emotional basis to really take the time to look at some of the hard numbers, some of the specifics on each of the markets, consider the properties, and all those different things when you're considering on investing. To give you guys a little perspective about myself, I currently own 8 rental properties, and they are located in 7 distinct different markets. The due diligence I conduct today when considering a market in which I'd like to invest is much different than when I got started more than a decade ago. It's definitely a learning process, and it's to be understood. First time you enter into anything, you're not going to be an expert, but it's definitely important to do your research. And so I'm so happy that you're tuning in to the webinar, and we'll go over some of those details. So over the next 30 to 40 minutes, I'll be touching on the following points. And understand that due diligence is a very broad and detailed topic. So this presentation will serve as an introduction to help you get started. First and foremost is setting your criteria. I'm going to jump right there to the bottom, and in red you can see that our real estate advisors can help you set your individual criteria. So point of that is that if you don't already have a real estate advisor, or you haven't started a relationship with one, that real estate advisor being an employee here at our office, I encourage you to reach out to them. They definitely can sit down with you either on the telephone or in person, or perhaps at one of our meetings, and can really go over your specific situation. They can help you understand the bullet points that we have here on the screen. Your experience, what have you done thus far? Do you own your primary residence? Have you ever owned any rental property? Do you currently own any rental property? Also, your ability to qualify for financing. Have you spoken to a lender? Have you done that recently? Do you know what your credit score is? Do you know what your debt-to-income ratio is? All those types of things. Your age. Are you young and therefore a little bit more risky? Or are you, getting closer to the retirement age and therefore looking for a little bit more fixed income? Also, what type of property and outlook are you looking for? More on the cash flow side, or what about appreciation? Different markets offer different types of situations. Same with the property. Maybe you want to go with cash flow. Maybe multi-units is better for you or for your portfolio. And then, of course, we've got the class of property. So A, B, and C class properties. If you're not familiar with that, it's just a rating system used. A being the best, B not as good, or C not as good as A or B. And understand that the class of the property not only relates to the property in terms of age and condition, but also to the neighborhood that it sits in and to the tenant pool that will be attracted or that you'll be able to pull from for that particular property. And then, are you hands-on or hands-off? This kind of couples with the classification system that I've mentioned. Hands-on would be, maybe you're eligible to get involved with multi-units, or you'd like to be really involved. So maybe something down of a B or C class property might work for you. If you're hands-off, or if you're what I like to call a green investor, brand new, never owned any rental property, I'd certainly recommend you going with an A class property, which would be something more like a newer home. Maybe not a new build perhaps, but definitely within the last 10 years in a very nice neighborhood, suburb of a large metro where you're going to pull mostly families and you're going to have a very hands-off experience. And then, of course, price point. Each market around the country offers different price point. Clearly, California is much more expensive than most other most other states in the country, but Arizona offers a different price point than, say, Toledo, Ohio. So understand that each market's a little bit different, and again, your real estate advisor can go over each of these with you to help you set your criteria. Now, the point of going all through this due diligence is, create worry-free investing. We're all here because we all want to invest. We're all interested in that, and we're trying to figure out how to get started. So here's just a couple of quick pointers to help you in the process of creating that worry-free investing. We always recommend sticking with single-family homes or perhaps small multi-unit buildings, duplexes or fourplexes. Focus on cash flow. I'd like to say that cash flow is always going to be there, but as interest rates start to rise, or perhaps home values start to rise, we may see cash flow disappear a little bit. But certainly you want to understand what the numbers look like, and you don't want to be entering into a high negative cash flow situation, putting yourself at a little bit higher risk. Definitely shoot and obtain a home inspection when you are in the process, in the escrow process, when you're in the process of buying that first or second or third, that home. We're going to go over that a little bit more in detail, but definitely that's a few $100 that can save you thousands in the long run. Property management. This is probably number one. As far as owning rental property, it's definitely the X factor. It can make or break your experience as well as your return. Certainly expect maintenance and vacancy. They are just part of the game, a part of the investment process when owning rental real estate. Try and stick with 3 and 4 bedroom units. We always recommend on a single family home a 3 or 4 bed, 2 bath, 2 car garage. You're going to get the best chance to obtain a family as a tenant, and that's a conservative way to go. I always like, a nice family, maybe a child or two. If you get into the 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or 2-bedroom, 2-bath units, you're less likely to be able to do that. You're probably going to get, a single individual, or perhaps maybe some college kids, something of that nature. Target the suburbs and the large metro areas. That's where the jobs are. Work your way up. Make sure you don't try to knock it out of the park right from the get-go. Buy 2, 3, 4, 5 properties right from the start. You're going to get yourself overwhelmed. So start with one. Learn through the process, and work with your property manager and see how things go. See how you like it, and get better as you go. Stay organized and track your properties. Certainly this is also another way to not get overwhelmed. A lot of people don't realize that it's a lot of a good amount of work to manage your rental property. It certainly is passive, but you definitely have to manage that property manager, and you have to track the status of your properties. You certainly want to look at them on an annual basis and make sure what type of return you're actually receiving. Point number 2 was talk to a lender. So understand that we have preferred lenders that will take the time to assess your ability to qualify. Of course, they'll do that for free. You should never expect to pay to talk to a lender. They're like a real estate agent, a service provider. But a lot of times you might run into a situation where they don't really want to take the time to work with you, answer all of your questions, really go over all the details that you need to understand. But we work with lenders on an ongoing basis, and I encourage you to reach out to some of them. We'll talk about one of them on the next couple of slides here. Now understand that your total qualifying power allows you to build solid goals based around what you can afford and also what you're comfortable buying. So when you talk to a lender and he understands and assesses your situation, how much cash you have, what your credit looks like, what your income looks like, you're going to get a good understanding about what's out there that you can afford and, of course, then what you're comfortable buying. Main qualifier in terms of getting you qualified to buy rental property is going to be your debt-to-income ratio. And how does that calculated? Well, you're going to take your debt and divide that by your gross, meaning before tax, monthly income. Included in your debt are going to be your credit card, minimum payments, perhaps your auto loan payment, and the mortgage payments. You know, if you have a primary residence and any other investment properties, you're certainly going to want to include those, as well as the property taxes and insurance on each of those. Also understand that the lender in factoring this is going to calculate the subject property, meaning the property you're looking to buy's mortgage payments, including property taxes and insurance. So general DTI requirement there, we've got 45%, and that's, you know, going to be getting you qualified for a conforming Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan. Here is Mr. Reed Hazard, who is our main preferred lender for the Marshall Reddick Real Estate Network. I've had the pleasure recently of working with Reed and his team over at AmeriFirst Financial. I refinanced a property that I owned down in South Texas, and he really did a fantastic job. I did have a couple of questions. Of course, he answered them promptly, and just the customer service that I got from his team there really made the process enjoyable. And sometimes it cannot be. I've been through a loan process that doesn't have open communication, and it's not as good as it was with Mr. Reed. So reach out to him. Even if he is not licensed in a state in which you're considering buying, he certainly will take the time to go over your questions, your concerns, and to get you qualified. Item number 3 on our list was researching geographic markets. So, you know, where do you invest? You know, what are some of the major bullet points that you need to consider? We've got some here. Of course, the job market. You definitely want to have the lowest unemployment rate. You know, that's obviously a good factor, meaning there's good wages there. There's good employers there. You want to take a look at the vacancy rate. Now, on the next couple of slides, we're going to be going over some websites where you can look at some of this information. But as far as the vacancy rate, I like to ask property managers that I'm interviewing and to get an idea about what their particular vacancy rate is. So I'll ask them questions like, how many properties do you have under management? And how many do you currently have vacant? I can do my own little calculation there. And then I ask them for a percentage, you know, on an ongoing basis, what is your particular vacancy rate amongst the properties that you manage? Major employers, does the area that you're considering investing in, does it have the Home Depots? Does it have the Walmarts or the Costcos and that type of thing? Housing affordability. Okay, so housing affordability, if you didn't know, is just the measure of the ability of a family earning the median income to purchase the median-priced home. So definitely a good indicator of a particular market and whether it's attractive to you for your investment criteria. And then, of course, the population growth. The government tracks a lot of major metropolitan statistical areas and can provide details on the increase in the population or the decrease. Certainly a good idea to invest in areas where the population is growing. That definitely means that there is jobs there, the area is nice, there is affordability there. So how do we research a market that's so far away? Well, again, as I mentioned, we're going to go over a couple of the websites that we here at the network use and that I personally like to use. The Job Outlook is definitely, you know, a lot of good information at the Bureau of Labor. So you can check out that website there. They've got other information, but Job Outlook, primarily you want to check this website. As far as the housing affordability, the National Association of Realtors is a wealth of information. I was fooling around on that website today to kind of check the housing affordability in the particular markets that I own. And so I did find a lot of other good information as far as how to research a market that you may be interested in investing in. My favorite on the screen here, however, is the City Data website. This website just has a ton of information, but it allows you to get down into the actual city demographics as opposed to the major metro, because we like to focus on the little cities, little suburbs around the major metros, and sometimes, as you know, real estate is hyper-local, and you definitely want to know what's going on in a particular city. So I definitely recommend you checking out all of these, but again, my favorite being the city data website. Okay, guys, this is one of the coolest parts of our presentation today, and definitely wanted to bring up that we have launched a new website. So this is a screenshot from the Investments tab of our new website, and this is a picture of the financial calculator that we have there for your enjoyment and for your use. So I'm going to take a minute here, and I'm going to go ahead and take us to the website to point that out to you guys. So here is the home page of the new website, and we've got a couple of tabs across the top. The Investments tab is what I was just speaking to. So if you go ahead and click on that, I'll bring to your attention here that you can select the markets that we are in. If you select all, it's going to give you all, or you can refine it down to just one or the other. I happen to be looking today at some property in Lehigh Acres, Florida, specifically this property here on MacArthur Avenue. So you go ahead and click the link. It'll take you here. You're welcome to browse the photos. These photos were uploaded as well as the rest of the detail from our regional reps in each of the markets. So check the photos. You can also see the specifics. Built in 2004. It's a 3.2, 1,580 square feet. The financial calculator I was talking to you about is here. So you can go ahead and click Financials, and it opens up. Now, understand there's two tabs here. It defaults to cash, meaning a cash purchase. So if you're going to be using conventional financing, which a lot of you will, go ahead and click that tab there, which brings up the details for your financing. A lot of the fields here are editable, and you can play around with those numbers. They will default to the numbers that we recommend. And I'll go over those a little bit. So, for example, down payment, 25% is pretty standard, but maybe you're a first, second-time investor and you're able to get a 20% down loan. So you can increase or decrease the down payment, which will, of course, will change the amount. That will also change the loan percentage and the loan amount. You can see the interest rates default to 4.625. We get an update from Reed Hazard at least once every 2 weeks as to the going rate, so this is the rate as of today. 30-year, we always recommend a conservative 30-year fixed mortgage, but you can change these figures if you have another opportunity. Welcome to put in some rehab costs if a particular property that you're looking to buy has those. And then, of course, closing costs. This will default here based on a percentage of the loan amount when you're using conventional financing. So you're welcome to change that number if you feel the need to, but definitely we put in a default number that's accurate based on our research. Down a little bit further here, you can see it breaks out your monthly mortgage payment and the annual payments. Of course, those will all change based on the criteria you've put in here or the particular property. We've got a rental range, vacancy, leasing fee, maintenance, and property management. Now, understand, guys, that a lot of other networks out there or investment groups or perhaps brokers that you've worked with, they presented a pro forma to you. They perhaps may have not included the vacancy, maintenance, and property manager. Now, these are very, very real numbers. You will experience them, so understand that we factored those into our financial pro formas. So definitely encourage you guys to check out the new website. Very proud of it, and play around with the Investments tab and that financial calculator. All right, moving on. Another one of our bullet points, verifying the home values. So check out these websites if you're not familiar with them. I use Zillow on a daily basis. I've started to use Trulia and Realtor.com a little bit more. They all offer slightly different features, but what they do is they aggregate all the sales data and the rental data, for that matter, in a particular market that you're looking at. So if you visit one of these websites, you can actually type in the address of a property that you're looking to buy or a particular area, and it's going to bring up some information there. It's going to give you an opinion of value. It's going to give you the recent property taxes, the sales that have occurred historically. So this will give you some information. Now, understand that it's just aggregating all those values, so you can't put too much weight in the value that it assigns, because if a particular market has a number of distressed sales versus equity sales, that may skew the numbers a little bit. But it will certainly give you some ballpark figures to verify home value. You also want to verify rental amount. So the websites we just went over are listed here as well. As I mentioned, Trulia, Realtor.com, and Zillow.com have a rental feature, so you can definitely check and verify your rental amounts there. I would recommend also checking Craigslist. This seems to be the way most tenants are finding their rentals, as well as most property managers are procuring their tenants. You can just log on to Craigslist pretty easy, get to the rentals section, type in a particular area that you're looking for, and refine the search down. I also like Rentometer. I believe Rentometer is for apartments. However, it's got some good information there. Definitely recommend you checking out Craigslist and Rentometer to verify your rental amounts that are being quoted to you not only by us here at the network and our regional reps, but also by your property manager. Understand the neighborhood. Again, real estate's very, very hyper-local and varies from little town to little town to little neighborhood to a particular home. So very cool, Google Maps. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that, but I wasn't familiar with the street view portion. Not sure how new that is, maybe behind the times a little bit on technology, but check that out. You can actually zoom in and see a picture of the actual home, and then you can kind of jet around a particular neighborhood. One thing I did want to bring to your attention there is that double check in the top left corner. It'll give you a date on which that picture was taken. So you want to make sure if it's a couple of years old, a lot can have changed in a couple of years of a particular home or a particular neighborhood, but the picture may only be a couple of months old or very recent. So definitely check that out when trying to understand your neighborhood. Also check out neighborhoodscout.com. This is a lot of good information here, but particularly for the school systems. So those of us that have children understand that where you choose to buy or to rent primarily relies around what type of school systems are there and the actual schools for your children. So use this website to help you better understand the neighborhood in which you're considering investing. Okay, property management is probably a whole presentation on its own, but understand that rule number one is to read the property management agreement carefully. That's what PMA stands for, property management agreement. So there's tons of detail in that property management agreement that you need to be aware of. You obviously need to know what the property manager's fee structure is. What do they charge as far as a lease-up fee? Is it a flat rate, or is it a percentage of the first month's rent? What do they charge percentage-wise of the monthly rent thereafter? Do they charge in the agreement if the property is unrented? Certainly, I wouldn't agree to work with a property manager if they're going to charge me a fee when I have no tenant. Another big thing you want to look at is the expenses what they can spend without notifying you. You also want to check and find out if they require you to keep a reserve on account with them. So make sure you go line by line through the property management agreement. I'm just like everybody else. I don't always read everything that's put in front of me, but certainly something I've learned is to read that agreement line by line, make notes on it, ask questions. That is perfectly okay. Here's an example of a property management agreement, at least the first page. This one is for our rep down in Phoenix, Arizona Equity Properties. And this is a standard agreement promulgated by the Arizona Association of Realtors. Some property managers use that standard, some do not. In either case, make sure you read it. Make that very clear. Questions for interviewing your property managers. At this point, you've basically gone through, you've worked with a real estate advisor, you've looked at the different markets that are out there. Maybe, you've refined it down to a couple of different markets and you're putting in offers or you're considering specific properties. It's time for you to interview your property managers. You don't need to write down all of this information. I'm going to take you again for a minute to our website and show you where you can grab these questions. But I just want to point out the website NARPM. I believe it stands for the National Association of Registered Property Managers. And, of course, we have recommended property management in every market that we represent. However, if you're buying in a particular area that we don't represent or we don't have a representative to pass on to you, certainly use this NARPM to find reputable property management companies. So again, just going to take a quick minute to jump to our website, back to the home page. Again, we've got these three tabs across the top. We went over investments, but under the education tab, you can come over here to guides. And under guides, you can find the questions for interviewing property managers. Again, a lot of very, very good questions here. You want to read through these. You may not want to ask all of these questions, but definitely highlight some that you'd like. And there's no reason to not take 30, 40 minutes to work with your property manager or prospective property manager to really understand their business and make sure that they're going to take care of your investment, your baby, as I like to call it. Because again, property management is the X factor, and it can really make or break your experience in owning rental property as well as your overall return on your property. A couple of little property management points. This would certainly be after you own the property, but still very important in regard 5 ways to keep your vacancy under 45 days. So first and foremost, keep a detailed, organized, and manage crucial dates. That plays right into number 2, that you want to know the date when your lease will expire. So make sure that you contact your property manager at least 60 days prior. Find out if they've reached out to the tenant. Does the tenant want to stay? Will they be signing a new lease? If you don't do that, your property manager may not, and then perhaps you're going to be rolling with a tenant on a month-to-month basis and risking them vacating at in winter time or holiday time when it's not the easiest to re-rent the property. Check online. Follow up on your property manager. I certainly do this. If they say that they've listed the property on Craigslist for rent or they listed it on their website, I go to their website. I see how easy it is to find my property. I jump on Craigslist and I search for my property. I hope I can find it. If I can't, I'm going to give them a call. I'm going to email them. I'm going to find out why I can't find it. I'm also, my recent property manager I hadn't worked with before, so I called from the Craigslist ad to see if they actually would answer. And if they didn't answer, I left them a message and I checked to see how long it took them to get back to me. So some little games you can play there. I certainly wouldn't advocate disclosing who you are when you do that. You don't want them to get upset with you, because you want them working for you. But definitely feel free and encouraged to check online and ensure your property is properly advertised. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, guys. I know you've heard that before, but when your property is vacant, pick up the phone. Make sure you call them once a week. They're going to spend more time with you when you do. They're going to take more effort in getting your property management, your property managed and rented again if you are constantly in contact. And don't settle for questionable tenants. Most times your property manager is going to give you a call and say, I've got an applicant here looking over their specifics, their credit report, etc., and they've just got maybe an eviction, or their employment has been a little questionable. I definitely won't settle. I'm more inclined to lower my rent and open up the pool of applicants that are applying to rent my home. So it's obviously your choice, but some quick 5 ways to keep your vacancy under 45 days. Here's a Craigslist ad. Again, just as pointing out, this happens to be a home that I own in Florissant, Missouri. And this was the ad that was posted by my property manager. They did have the information correct, which I was very happy about. And, of course, I called them, and luckily, they called me. They didn't answer, but they called me back within 24 hours. I was very happy to see that. But definitely check up on your property manager. Another important thing here is to review your repair work. So, especially if you get a large repair item, you're going to want to ask questions. You're going to want to verify that cost. You're going to want to make sure that a minimum of 2 estimates. I like 3 particularly. Always get a receipt. You definitely want to understand if your property manager is upcharging the fees at all. That will be listed in your property management agreement as well, something to look at. But it's not uncommon that a property manager doesn't have their own handyman in-house, that they contract one out and charge maybe 10% on top of what the actual expense cost was. So get a receipt and understand if that's happening. Is there a minimum dollar amount for pre-approval? So what I mean by that, again, I touched on this with your property management agreement, is what is the dollar amount the property manager can spend without getting your pre-approval? I've seen commonly $250 or $300. My most recent property manager in Florissant, Missouri had $1,000 listed in there. So when I was doing my interview with him and going over the agreement, I simply said that was not acceptable, and I moved it down to $300, struck that out on the agreement, initialed it, had my property manager initial it as well, and that's what we had agreed upon. Also check on, your property manager won't necessarily know if you have a home warranty or if an individual item in your home, perhaps a range or a dishwasher, has a warranty. So definitely bring that to their attention, or remember that when they come to you if one of those items is broken or if you have a repair expense there. Make sure you get a home inspection, guys. It's not required, but it's highly, highly recommended. I touched on this previously, but spending a few $100s up front can save you thousands down the road. So you'll have this done when you're in escrow before you close on the property. And understand when you get that inspection report back from the inspector, you're always going to find something wrong, or they are always going to have found something wrong. Commonly, your report is going to be 50-plus pages. Don't freak out by that. They're always going to have things that are wrong. So you're only looking for major expense items, problems with the HVAC, or perhaps roofing issues, plumbing issues, that type of thing. Here's a quick screenshot of an example of what an inspection report may look like. It often includes recommended or corrective actions that should be taken or could be taken. It will include photos. So you're welcome to negotiate back and forth with the seller, but understand that most likely they're not going to fix a lot of different things, especially if you're buying the property as is. But again, you're looking for those major items, roof, HVAC, plumbing, that type of thing, because you can certainly back out of the contract if there's a major issue and it was uncovered by a couple of $100 towards an inspection. Shop your insurance. Okay, insurance companies range. Just like your auto insurance. Look around, shop it. And these are a couple bullet points here that will change the cost of your insurance and of your annual premium. Certainly a new home constructed this year versus a home that was built in 1950 is going to have different insurance costs. The older home will be more expensive to insure. When dealing with an older home, the roof, the plumbing, the heating, the wiring, and the windows, when those were most recently repaired or replaced, is going to play into your insurance cost. The location is huge. Certainly, insuring a home down on the Florida coast or in Houston on the coast there is going to be more expensive than insuring a home in Boise. There's just natural disasters and hurricanes there, so that's going to be factored in. The proximity that you have from the fire department. If there's brush around, are you close to water? Are you in a flood zone? These different types of things are going to play into it. You can also reduce your insurance costs by packaging it with other insurance policies you have. Do you have your auto and home insurance with a particular insurer? Do you have an umbrella policy? Well, if you look at with that insurance company, you're probably going to get a lower rate for a particular investment property that you're considering buying. And then, of course, the deductible that you choose will play into it. So the lower the deductible, the higher your premium on an annual basis is going to be. You can probably go as low as $500 or $1,000 on the deductible level. You can probably go up as high as $5,000. It's what your comfort level is. I owned rental property for 10 years. I have not used had an insurance claim, so I'm comfortable with higher deductibles. Others maybe not so, and they'd like a smaller deductible, maybe $500,000 or something of that nature. And interestingly, outside of the state of California, your credit score will play into the cost you pay for your annual insurance premium. Here's a quick look at the markets that we are in, and these are the top markets in the country. We choose our markets based on the latest research and data. So we use those websites that you were talking about. We look at the metropolitan statistical analysis, metropolitan statistical areas put out by the government, understand population growth, job growth, the ability of people to afford homes and rentals in that neighborhood, the rental amount versus the purchase price. And that's why we're not in California. You can't buy a rental property in California without putting, 50, 60, 70% down to get a payment that will match what you can rent the property for. So we've got these areas for your investments, and we highly recommend, doing your research on top of this as well. And why are we in these areas? I mentioned that a little bit, but jobs, of course. The low cost of living, high rent versus your price, low vacancy, good education. A lot of these markets have major universities, and of course we've got reliable, vetted property management. We always encourage our network members to come back to us if they're using our recommended property management, and to let us know when they're doing a good job. Also let us know when they're not necessarily doing the greatest job, as then we want to get on the phone with them and find out what the problem is and help you guys rectify the situation. We can't manage the property for you or manage the property manager for you, but we certainly welcome your feedback. One more point before we finish up here is definitely want to touch on the property manager and what their criteria is for vetting your particular tenants. So what are the criteria that they look at to qualify that particular tenant? Do they look at obviously the tenant's credit score? They take an application from them. They get their prior rental locations and landlord's contact information. You're definitely going to want to understand what they do for work and verify their employment. You're not going to want to get involved in those things, but you want to understand what it is that your property management uses to screen your potential tenants. Again, remember, property management is the X factor and can make or break your experience and your return. So with that said, I really appreciate you all tuning into the webinar. We've got the general contact information for us here at the network, mainline phone number, general email address, and of course our website. You're welcome to contact me if you don't already have a connection to a real estate advisor. You want to reach out to them first and foremost and build that relationship. But again, my name is Patrick Prunty. My direct phone number is 949-885-8173, and my email address is pprunty@mrren.com. Be more than happy to chat with you, get you in touch with a real estate advisor. I'd also be willing to share with you a little bit about my experience and what I've learned over the years. So again, thanks so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful rest of your day.